Hey, good morning, everybody. Trey Griggs here at Beta Consulting Group, back at home here in St. Louis, Missouri. Very excited about that. If you caught yesterday's show with John Calloway, you'll notice that some hijinks occurred there. I was at my parents' house in Grandview, Missouri, over on the Kansas City side. My stepdad walked in right during live studio, and he's at that age where he just didn't care. He just did his own thing. And so, pretty comical moment. If you didn't get a chance to see that, make sure you go back and watch episode 42 yesterday with John Calloway of LogX down in Springfield, Missouri. Had a great conversation talking about faith and business and all kinds of great topics around starting a business and having a small team. So it was a great show and really enjoyed that. Good morning, Richard. Thanks for joining. Good to see you on the show today. And anybody else who's out there, tell us where you're coming from today. Hope you're having a fabulous Thursday. This is episode 43 of Standing Out, a daily podcast about sales, marketing, and leadership, powered by Beta Consulting Group. I also want to give a shout out to my sponsor, TAFS. These are the good guys in freight factoring, helping to educate drivers on all of their services to make sure that they can survive even in the tough times, manage cash flow, and have all the services and needs that they can to really thrive and survive. So thank you to TAFS. Go to TAFS.com to learn more about them, and visit my website as well to see them as a preferred partner at betaconsultinggroup.com. And check out what we can do for you from a sales and marketing aspect as well. Okay, everybody. Let's talk about today's guest. Excited to have this guy on. This guy is a forward-thinking mind. He's somebody who really wants to facilitate change and implement new strategies that are going to push the market forward, push the industry forward with what he's doing and what he's done in the past. So very excited to talk to my good friend today about what he's doing over at Breaker Logistics. Everybody give it up for Kyle Lintner. Kyle, what's up, man? How are you, brother?
What is going on, Trey? Good to see you, bud.
It's good to see you too, man. I'm excited because this is the second time basically in a week that we've had a chance to chat, and this is much more focused. Last week you were on Word on the Street. We appreciated that. Had a great conversation around around platforms and especially in our industry, the fragmented technology and those types of things as well. Today I'm excited just to talk to you specifically about what you're doing over at Breaker Logistics and talk a little bit about marketing and about bringing a new product to market and all that. So before we do that, for the few people who don't know who you are, just a quick intro of who you are, what you've done in the past, and what you're doing now.
I am Kyle Lintner, for those that don't know me. I am 3.5 to 4 years into freight now. Most people know me, former managing director of K-Ratio, weekly video series, won some awards, did some different things inside of freight. I'm now at a company called Breaker, and what we are doing is trying to put an open transaction platform for all participants to connect to and basically all vendors to connect to. So anything from payments to tracking to invoicing, anything you can think of, everything that goes into a load. Let's get it done in one place where we can all communicate together.
Yeah, and I love that. We talked about this last week a little bit. Probably 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, the prevailing thought was, let's just create a piece of technology to solve one problem.
Yeah.
Let's create a tracking solution to deal with tracking. Let's create a document processing software that will read invoices and get them into your system. And everything was very much siloed and fragmented. And now the prevailing thought is, let's start to create some technology platforms that can do all of that in one location and give a common tool set. What was kind of the determining factor for Breaker to say, yeah, this is the direction we're going to head. This is what we want to produce, and talk a little bit about the thought behind that.
Yeah, you really hit the nail on the head with that. So the idea is basically what you just said, that let's get everything in one common workspace. But I think what we're approaching differently is we're not necessarily the best people at doing any of those individual components. So you might like who you're using for factoring or tracking or booking or any of the things that go into the load. And maybe we can't provide a better service for that. So instead of competing with them on that, why not just invite them into it? And really what we view it is just a hub for all of that stuff. Instead of having 7 tabs or 7 windows or 7 softwares open on your computer, what if you just had one? And what if within that one, everything you had was open and transparent for everyone to see, except if it was anything that needed to be private? So from carrier vetting to carrier acceptance, those things can be hidden, but the things that we think shouldn't be hidden are things like price and volume. Loads are out there for all to see, prices out there for all to see. Let's have an open, clear marketplace so that best practices and best ideas can move forward. And then let's have everyone who's got a viable, good product that people enjoy, let's allow that to connect so that we're not saying, hey, look, come here and book, but we've got a really crummy payment part of it. You're just going to have to deal with it. No, let's have the best payment system come in there. Let's have the best tracking system come in there. And, it's competition via cooperation, which sounds a little odd at first, but when you think about it, it isn't. It is how other industries currently consist of and how they interact. And everybody is out there with their product, and you leave it to the consumer to decide how they want to interact with you.
Yeah, and I think coopetition is the word that people come up with nowadays,
Yeah.
like cooperation / competition.
I
But the
don't like
difference
saying it because every time I feel like I'm saying it wrong, even though that you are saying it wrong. That's what the word is.
Right, exactly. But the difference with Breaker especially is that instead of you guys like building all the tools yourself, building that common set of tools yourself, you're really building, you're throwing a party. You're getting
Yep.
everybody to come to the party and participate in the party together and getting the best of the best in class of each of those services to come in and work together and talk together, which is a slight variation on what we're seeing from other platforms that are trying to be the all-in-one. We're going to provide the best, their own tracking, their own document processing, all
Yep.
those things. And like you said, sometimes they just might not knock it out of the park in one of those areas. And
Right.
so having a party, if you will, having a marketplace that allows the best to come in and work together is really where the industry is heading. It seems like that's the best way to do it, is to get
It
people
makes
to be able
sense, right?
to talk better. Yeah.
Think
Systems
about
to
it.
talk.
Like I always think about it of like your phone. Whether you have an Apple or an Android, you have all kinds of apps on your phone, right? But Apple didn't make all those apps, or Google
Right.
didn't make all those apps, but they facilitate those apps. And that's what we're really looking to do. Let's have it facilitated. And in the same way that when you go on the iPhone, all you have to do is go to the App Store to get what you want, and you can see what you can do, and you can see who else is using it. Same thing here. Let's have the open connection, the open platform for all, and then let's see what we want to see from it.
Yeah, and one word that you said also that I think is really critical now and is going to become even more of a critical issue is transparency. I think consumers and all participants, they want more transparency. I think it's something that has been almost like the people who don't want you to know what pricing is or don't want you to know what it is because they want to be able to take advantage of that. But
Yeah.
consumers really want transparency, and especially when it comes to pricing, especially when it comes to what's happening, what's going on in the process of a load and things like that. When did transparency become a kind of a founding principle for what you guys are doing?
Probably from day one. For myself, it's been forever because I mean, I can say that even as a child, I never understood the idea of things being hidden. But prior to freight, my professional experience was in financial markets, and in an open tradable market, everyone can see every transaction. You don't know who's on the other side of any of the transactions, but you're able to see volume and price. So it's that same type of mentality that I'm trying to bring to freight. It's let's see how many loads are out there, and let's see what the loads are going for. Instead, we have this weird thing where we try and predict what the price is, or we try and predict volume, or we have brokers that say they know the market and then they try and match the market. I heard a very interesting Chinese proverb 2 nights ago, and it stuck out of my mind. And that it was in clear waters you catch no fish. And what that meant is the only way that any fisherman can successfully fish is when the waters are dark. And at first, when you hear it, you think, well, I would like it to be clear so that I could see. But then you realize if you can see the fish can see you, so you can't get anything. The only way they can get it done is if it's in dark, murky waters. Well, the same thing applies in freight. If you're a broker, the only way that you can effectively take the spread between the market is if it's a dark market and no one really knows what you're doing, unless we have total transparency and you shift your value proposition and your business model to your customer. You go back to what freight is really supposed to be as a broker, and that's acting as the conduit between capacity and shipper, not making a different market for two different people and keeping what's in between. Yes, everybody understands that you have to keep the lights on. You need to run your business. You need to collect a fee for doing it. That's fine. I don't think there's one person in the industry that says brokers shouldn't make any money. But it isn't fair, and it doesn't feel right, because it isn't right to have a wide spread between what the shippers charge and what the carriers charge. And I even in its deepest sense, I honestly feel like freight brokerages are a little bit communist, because in a free capitalist society, we allocate resources where price tells us to do. And when that price is hidden from all, we don't know where to best send the trucks. They never get to find out which markets need them the most, because that spread is kept inside the broker's pockets.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate for just a moment because I want to hear your response to this. Because I think that, I love the idea of transparency. I think that definitely helps out. But at the same time, I think the businesses would say, well, I don't necessarily want to show off my margins or show how much money I'm making. Are we going to make the carriers show what they're making, what their operating ratios are? Some will display that, but some are like, I don't want to share that. Or do we make shippers and manufacturers share their margins and what they're making? Because that's kind of what it sounds like we're talking about is understanding what the brokers are making and
It
making sure
gets
that it's at
into
a
that,
fair amount.
yeah. It's a very, very good question, and it does venture into that space. And that's not what I'm looking to do. Whatever your business runs on, whatever your margins are, that's up to you. Fine. If you want to have an arrangement where your partners can see what you're making, more power to you. If you want to disclose to your carriers, look, this is what we take. If you want to tell your shippers, look, this is what we take. I view open and transparent marketplaces, as far as the brokerages are concerned, as almost what most of us know in the industry is cost plus, right? I will move any load you send over to me. I will automatically accept the tender, and I will bill you cost plus my margin. So in the future, the way I think freight's going to get is in these marketplaces, the brokers are going to act and they're going to represent the capacity that cannot access the enterprise level shipper. So think about the individual owner operator, the 1 or 2 truck, small fleets. Those guys can't go ship for Walmart. They can't ship for Target. Target's not going to onboard them. They can't deal with them. What Target and Walmart will do is deal with a third party. They'll deal with a brokerage that can aggregate that capacity for them. So in the future, those brokers will get back to their true roots of connecting that capacity to the shipper. And if the shipper wants to run it through the brokerage, fine. If the shipper wants to go direct to the carrier, fine. Either way is acceptable. If the broker is in between, what they choose to keep is up to them. But when you get into that type of competition, now the value proposition to the carrier becomes those margins, because you can offer exclusivity to those carriers in the sense that if you go to open a stock account, you have your choices, right? And you make those choices based off the service that's offered to you and also on that price. So now if I'm an individual owner operator, I can say, look, I'm not going to go be able to ship for Walmart or Target. But if I sign up with a broker, I can. Which broker would I like to sign up with? This one's offering these payment terms. This one's offering this percentage of margin. This one's offering these types of loads. So now you get into a different scenario where the brokerages are providing a true service to the shippers in the sense that they are bringing the capacity to them. They're vetting the carriers for them, all the stuff they're already supposed to be doing. And they're bringing that same value to the carrier. And the competition to secure the capacity to have them sign up with you is what keeps the margins in line and keeps the margins healthy.
Yeah, and along those lines too, I think as you talked about that, it made me think about something that we've talked about earlier, and that is the difference. The value proposition transitions to service.
Mm-hmm.
It transitions to the service offering. Who's providing the best service? Who's providing the best experience? Which I think at the end of the day is what you want to get to, because some people will make a decision just based on cost alone, but that usually leads to a lot of problems. If you're just buying the cheapest, it's not going to go fast. Might not go with quality. So I like the idea of putting things on a more of a level playing field and making service being the winning factor moving forward. I think that is a positive.
Or maybe the service isn't, right? Maybe the shipper does want price, but you have to allow them that choice. And the only way they can make the choice is if they're able to see everything in front of you. And once we have everything in one singular platform, you can begin a rating system, right? We can have carriers rated on scores. And then those shippers or the brokers, if they're acting in a managed transportation situation, can say, I like this carrier with this service rating at this cost level. Or I can say, I just need all service. Or I can say, I just want price. Whatever you want. The decision is yours to make. We're trying to provide the reasoning behind those decisions instead of just this, let's throw our hands up in the air and see the best we can do mentality.
Yeah, I definitely think that transparency and more automation, more better workflows, and all that's going to just continue to improve the industry. It's such a fragmented industry. It's such a big problem to tackle. But I love the fact that you guys are working to tackle that problem. Let me shift for a second because I want to talk a little bit about launching a new product and marketing a new product. And something that you've done really well in your career. When you were doing your videos about looking forward, I always like those videos. Those are always good. Hope that we see some more video content from you in the future. But when you think about launching a new product and specifically marketing of that new product, what are some of the things you focus on, or what's really important whenever you think about making sure that the word is getting out and the awareness is getting out of what you guys are doing? And what's up, Tony Darnell? Good to see you, man. Come from Elkhart, Indiana. Thanks for joining the show. Good guy, good friend of ours over there. Yeah, go ahead.
Love Tony. That is a great question. And I don't know if it's a different approach. I don't know if it's the right approach. I just know what my approach has been. And that's, I think before I ever got into marketing or selling a product, I wanted to make sure that I was marketing and selling the brand first. I wanted people to know the name before I ever even got into this is what we do or this is what we sell. So, in my opinion, consumers purchase from names they know and trust. So, if you've never heard of anything, you're not going to buy it, right? The first time you hear of something, unless it's the greatest thing ever invented, and as much as I think freight execution platforms are, it's not something that screams buy me, buy me, buy me. So first they have to understand who you are, and then it is what are you and what is it that you do. And then once that out there, it's okay, I know this name, I've seen this name. Even if they don't know exactly what you do, they've heard the name and they're familiar with it. It sounds comfortable when they hear it. Then it's why should I buy whatever you're selling? And that's where the trust comes in, and that's where the knowledge comes in. And the more that you can get what you're doing out there and explain it, and for myself, I only get involved with products that I truly believe in. So the selling of it to me is natural because they're a product that does some good. And then it's just that, it's just getting that out there, getting the messaging and explaining what your product is. And if it's worth its salt, it'll sell itself. But first, they just need to know that they can trust you and why they should buy from you. So
Yeah,
it's almost like reverse selling to me.
Well, and it's almost counterintuitive because I think that especially when you're starting a new company or a new product, all you're
Right.
thinking about is like getting customers, getting revenue, kind of just getting out there, selling, selling, selling. I think that's the beginning.
Right.
And a lot of times we don't put a lot of emphasis or onus on the marketing side of it. And I love what you said about getting the brand out there because, man, I think of the value of a brand. I think it's so undervalued what a brand actually does in the mind of a consumer. And I just put a post on this the other day too. Like, when your brand is well known, well established, and people trust it, people like it, it increases in value. I just put a post out yesterday about a polo because I love polos. I have way too many polos. I got like 50 polos in my closet. My wife is like, you got to get rid of some of these polos, but I'm addicted, almost like some people are with shoes. But you can take a polo that costs $25. If you put a little Nike swoosh on it somewhere,
Yep.
now it's worth $75. And then if you take that exact same Nike shirt and you put a Masters logo on it, for the Masters golf tournament, now it's worth $170. But the shirt is the exact same.
Yep.
The only thing that has changed is the brand. That's the
Yep.
only thing that's changed. And that's where the value comes from.
People
so, like
buy
you
the
said,
name, right?
Exactly. If you can get your brand out there and become somebody who's known and trusted and understands that, that's huge. And then your product just follows suit. But if you go product first, then there's always those questions of, wait, who are these? What is this? Who are these people? I mean, there's a lot of that goes into it. I think you shorten the sales cycle considerably when you get your brand out there.
Exactly. And that's really the reason to do it. When you have your sales reps out there making the calls and doing the outbound, it's going to be really, really hard. And it's going to take a long time to convert a prospect when they don't know who you are or what you do. But when they pick up that phone and make the call and they say, hey, I'm John Smith and I'm calling from Breaker. Oh, I've heard that name. Maybe they don't know exactly what you do, but they're familiar with it. And it's, yeah, I've heard you guys. I've seen you guys. Tell me what you do. It resonates and it lands much easier. And, this isn't my personal take, and kind of don't like even admitting it, but sometimes the best products don't even win, right? It's exactly like you said. It's the name. And Nike, it's the first one that pops into my mind. And the second one that pops into my mind is Apple. I have an iPhone. I also have a BlackBerry. And
you have a BlackBerry still. Wow.
I'm a weirdo.
You haven't let it go. I like it.
No,
Hold on.
Can't. But if you look back at it, when Apple first came out, BlackBerry didn't view them as a legitimate competitor. They were not concerned at all because the primary reason was Apple's software wasn't well written, and the consumption of data for anything you were doing on an iPhone was 10x to the BlackBerry. And if we think back all the way into 15, 17 years ago, data was very, very expensive from your cell carriers. And when it came out, the people at BlackBerry said that, look, there's no way. Consumers are going to rip through data. It's way too expensive. There's no way that this thing succeeds. And what the folks at BlackBerry didn't recognize, and the people at Apple did, was that their product was so different, it imparted change on the consumer's behavior towards their carriers. They began to demand more data and spend whatever it was to get it. They didn't care. They just wanted to come through that Apple. They didn't care that their bill went up 4 or 5 times. They wanted more. And it changed not just the cell phones, obviously, but it changed the way that cell phone plans became. So I don't want to say that I'm involved with an inferior product, but sometimes it's just getting out that name first and getting them familiar with it, and that allows you to then bring in some change. And I do recognize that what we're trying to do and the things I'm talking about are very different for the industry, and it's hard to accept that. So first step one has to be get comfortable, get familiar with the brand, and then we'll let us tell you what we do.
Yeah, there's so many benefits that come from that. I mean, I think of, I follow Gary Vaynerchuk. I like
Mhm.
watching him and just, listening to what he has to say about business and marketing and empathy and all those kind of things. But I'll never meet the guy. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll probably never meet the guy. Maybe I get lucky at some point and do that, but I never meet the guy. But I feel like I know him, number one, because he's out there. And then number two, if VaynerMedia ever gave me a call, if I had a phone call and it said VaynerMedia on it, I'd probably take that phone call versus a company that I didn't know, because there is a familiarity. There is a level of trust. There is kind of an understanding of who you're dealing with, or at least what kind of company you might be dealing with. I tell this to CEOs and executives all the time. If they put themselves out there and let people understand who they are, the people who are founding the company, who are instilling those values in the direction of the company, if they let people know who they are, it creates this emotional personalization of a brand that is so powerful, because people buy on emotion. They buy from people they like. They buy from something that's cool. Like, there's these factors that really don't go into even what the product is that impact buying decisions.
No,
And so,
100% agree. Yeah.
yeah,
It's funny because the same ownership group involved with Breaker, they also own a transportation company, two of them, in fact. And I do some work for them, Wolf Direct. And it's a great company with great customers. But because of those great, very, very large shippers that they work for or do business with, they're in particular regions and they're in particular patterns. So in order to fill out their customer profile, it has to be other similar type of large shippers. And the sales and marketing outreach is hard because it's a smaller company. When you reach out to some of these larger guys and say, look, our trucks are already in the area, these are our power lanes, this is what we do, we have these wonderful service records, our other customers love us, could we have a look at your freight? And it's, who are you again? Never heard of you.
right.
How many trucks? And you want to say to them, like, look, here are these recommendations, here are our ratings, we're a great company, but it's, never heard of you, sorry, we're not adding you.
That's right.
Okay.
There's a lack of familiarity there, and I think a lot of companies just miss that. And I think tell me if this is correct. I think it's because it's really hard to determine direct ROI on marketing. Like, you know it when it happens. Like, you feel it when it happens. When you start seeing inbound leads come in, when your sales team seems like things are easier for them to sell, you get that flywheel going from the marketing. You know when it's happening, but there's not always a direct ROI.
Yep.
And I think for a lot of business leaders, it's hard to say, well, I'm going to invest $100,000 on my marketing over the next 6 months, and I'm not sure that I can quantify what I'm going to get for that.
Yep.
But you know it when it's there.
100%. I think a lot of that, it's very similar to the age old debate inside of businesses for those that don't know. And it's, well, what's the difference between sales and marketing? Aren't they the same thing? And when you get to the sales leader or the marketing leader, and the two of them look at the other one, and the marketing person's like, why don't you convert with the messaging we're getting out there? And the sales leader says, well, you need to do a better job of marketing. And the two work cohesively together. And with sales, it's really easy to see the ROI, right? What are we doing? What are our metrics? What are we converting? How much is coming in? But how do you quantify that marketing component? And
Right.
because I firmly believe in the marketing drives sales, there really isn't a way to measure the marketing efforts.
It's very
There's
difficult.
all that stuff
Yeah.
out there on eyeballs and clicks and how many people you're getting. That's wonderful to know how far and wide your messaging is getting out there. But the actual conversion to know, did this sale originate because of our marketing, is really, really hard. And
Almost impossible.
it is. And I
Almost
honestly,
impossible.
at a past stop, we spent money and time trying to reverse engineer that. And I don't know if that's the best way. I don't know another way. But when we successfully onboarded customers as part of the client experience, we would have our regular check-ins with them, and we would just say, would you mind if we asked you some questions? And what we wanted to get to the bottom of was, why did you pick us? Why did you say yes? Was it from just a cold call? Did you see a LinkedIn post? Did you see an advertising in a trade publication? Was it a conference? We didn't want to get really invasive and prying, but we were just trying to get to the bottom of, where did you first hear about us and what prompted you to say yes, so that we could better figure out where to allocate our resources from the marketing standpoint because you're 100% right. How do you put an ROI in the marketing? I don't know any other way.
It's difficult. Direct attribution is the challenge, because if somebody fills out a form on your website, that helps a little bit because they were on your website. You can kind of attribute that, but was that the first thing or was that the primary thing? They may have watched a podcast. They may have heard from a friend, word of mouth about business. They may have gotten an email, a marketing email from a campaign, and then they came to the website and then they filled out a form. But the website's not really what led to that lead. Or that sale. And so direct attribution is very difficult in marketing. But like I said, when it's happening,
Yeah,
when it's
you can
working
feel it.
because there's momentum. It's an easier sale for the sales guys. They have to ask fewer questions or explain fewer things because the customer's more educated, because they read a white paper, they read a blog, they watched a case study, they watched this podcast and understand a little bit more about what you do or what I do. And so all those things are really critical and important to the brand and pushing it out there, but you're not necessarily going to see an ROI like you would with a salesperson. Hey, this guy made 75 calls a day. He talked to 20 people. He had 10 demos and he closed 3 deals, and the average deal size was. I'm like, you can get so granular with sales, and it's much easier to go, okay, well, yeah, we're paying this guy 50,000 a year, and he brought in 250,000 in revenue. You can see that ROI. It's just not that way with marketing, but it's so critical and so important.
Yeah.
That's an investment that companies make.
I completely agree with all that. And it from a personal standpoint, drives me nuts because everything that I try and do in business is the opposite. I don't like any gut feeling. I want to eliminate any sort of subjectivity around it. I want it to be all fact-based. And when it comes to marketing, and I'm the total opposite, it is all how I feel. I know when it's working. I can
Right.
feel it and I can see it, but I can't
Right.
put a number on it.
Yeah.
And it drives me nuts.
Marketing's job is to create awareness and to create a cult-like following,
Yep.
and that's where I think companies like Apple have done that. I mean, people
Yep.
often joke, "Oh, you drank the Kool-Aid." I did. I totally drank the Kool-Aid. I've got like 15 Apple devices in my house. I don't have one Android device in my house. I drank the Kool-Aid. I'm a part of the cult because of their messaging. They had a commercial series come out. You probably remember this. It was like back in 08 or 09, maybe 2012, 2013, where they had the really kind of cool young guy as the Apple guy, and they had kind of like the nerdy
Yeah.
guy as the Microsoft guy, and they,
Yep.
like they have all these just kind of different things, and their product launches or big events, and all they got these people hooting and hollering, and I mean it's like the FOMO. They've created the
Yep.
FOMO through the marketing, and that's what you want your company. You want people to know who they are, know who you are, know what you can do, and want to be a part of it. And
Yep.
that's the job of marketing. But I love what you said too. Sales and marketing really is one department with 2 distinct objectives, and they need to work together on that. But if you leave it to one, or if you just have your sales leader, hey, would you do some marketing as well? Sales leader, I don't know, really thinking that way. They're thinking like metrics and processes and
Yep.
revenue. And so just having the right personnel or having a third
Right.
party that can come in and help with that, so critical to getting this right. I love your mindset. I love your attitude on that. It's awesome. Well, hey, listen,
No, thank you.
we're at 30 minutes, man. This thing goes so
Flies
fast. It
by,
does
doesn't
every
it?
day. It just totally flies by. But it was great having you on the show. I hope you'll come back and see us again.
Oh, absolutely. No, it's been a blast. I've got a million things I'd like to talk about still with you.
I know there's a ton more. We could probably go on for hours and hours,
Yeah.
but half hour, people got to get back to work. So we appreciate everybody who watched today. Make sure you come back tomorrow for episode 44. Very excited about having Greg Banks on. He's a sales leader at JB Hunt. The guy's going to be awesome to talk about and just dig into his career and some tips we can get from a sales perspective as well. And make sure you follow every episode at 10:30 a.m. every day Central Time for Standing Out, daily podcast about sales, marketing, leadership, powered by Beta Consulting Group. Kyle, thanks again, man. Appreciate it. Everybody else out there, have a wonderful afternoon. We'll see you guys tomorrow.